Well, if anybody's wondering why I'm in Crawfordsville, I am come that you might have life and that you might have it more gooder. Is that all right? A lot of people think that Jesus came to help us die more nobly, but Jesus said, I am come that you might have life. There are, in my estimation, two kinds of people in the world, whether it's in a church setting, in a business setting, in just life setting. There are those, a group of people that I call determiners, and then there are those that are pacifists. There are people who, as determiners, are proactive, and there are pacifists who are reactive. Now, I'm not going to tell you which one is right and which one is wrong. I'm just going to tell you there's two kinds of people. I'm going to talk about it a little bit today, and you decide which one you want to be. I want to speak to you this morning on something that I've called the law of outcome. I want to encourage you that you have a right, a God-given right. You are under divine edict to be able to do this if you so choose. You can begin to determine the outcome. Brother John Woods, as you go to assume the man of ministry in Valparaiso, is it? Am I saying it right? Valparaiso? I want to encourage you today that you have a divine right to go in and be the thermostat there, not to go and acclimate to it, but to change the climate as you so deem necessary. Obviously, under the auspices and the leadership of the Holy Spirit, as God would lead you to do. There's nothing in my mind more fulfilling than to be led of the Spirit. They that walk after the flesh mind the things of the flesh. And the flesh is really a nice thing if it's in its place. But if the flesh ever becomes your master, it is a hard master. It was not intended to be so. It was intended that we would walk after the Spirit. They that walk after the Spirit mind the things of the Spirit. There's so many things that I have thought to share, and I think I'm going to have 5 sessions. This is the first of 5. I'm going to share with you the law of outcome this morning. Tonight, if you come back, I'm going to share with you the law of a dream. Monday night, I want to share with you the domino effect. Tuesday night, I want to share with you I am the integrated God. And when we close out on Wednesday, I want to talk to you about divine audacity. Let's talk about some things that come from almost 3 chapters in Genesis. We begin in Genesis chapter 29. Let me just say this about law. Law is not a rule. Rules are things that we set up to play games. The government does not make law. The government says they pass laws. How many times you heard there ought to be a law? Yeah. And I'll say, really? We need another one? But the truth is that government doesn't have the capacity, the wherewithal to make a law. Only God can make law. Man makes rules. Laws cannot be broken. And what I'm going to share with you today I want to give you what I believe to be 3 principles of the law of outcome. If you understand this and receive it and apply it in your life, it is a practical way to live. It will serve you in your marriage. It will serve you with your children. It will serve you in your ministry. It will serve you in your vocation. It will serve you wherever you find yourself. And if you can remember what I'm going to share with you today and take with you, I'm going to try to help you do that. This can be a life change for you today. I believe that Jesus Christ came to this planet to change our mind. To change our mind about the Father, to change our mind about our health, to change our minds about wealth and prosperity, to change our mind about relationship. That really what Jesus came to do was to show us a better, a higher way. A long time ago, there's a story about Adam and Eve, and you know about the 2 trees. The first tree was the tree of knowledge of good and evil, this and that, up and down, in and out. There was another tree. The other tree, according to the story, was ignored until it was lost. And the tree that Adam and Eve decided to indulge in was the tree that was forbidden to them. I want to ask you a question. If the tree of knowledge was forbidden in the book of Genesis, is not the pursuit of that knowledge forbidden today? When did it become okay? When is it all right to build our churches under the shade of the tree of knowledge of good and evil? When did it get okay to live your life according to the dictates of this and that, in and out, up and down? See, there's another tree, and it exists at a higher level. We have chosen, even in our Christianity, to live in the dirt. But Jesus didn't come to show us how to manipulate dirt. Jesus said, in this dirt, you will have trouble. But He said, be happy, be of good cheer. I've overcome it. I've learned to live at a higher level. In other words, we have the God-given right, as Jesus, our elder brother, has come to show us. You say, is He my Lord? Yes. Is He my master? Yes. Is He my brother? Yes. They said, how do we pray? He said, pray like this. Pray, our Father. What was He telling you? You are a child of God. I have come to encourage you not to push you down and perpetuate the idea that too long has lived in Christianity, that all we are is a bunch of piss ants trying to get better, trying to live a human life better. No, we are supposed to live in a divine manner. We're supposed to live as sons of God. And as sons of God, we have certain God-given authorities and rights. And some of those I want to share with you today. If I keep doing what I'm doing right now, I'll never get through this. Genesis chapter 29. You know, preachers can preach about anything. So the law is something that you can't break. How many know that gravity is a law? And what goes up? Why? Because it's a law. So blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful, but his delight is in the law of the Lord. And in his law doth he meditate day and night. He shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season, when it's time. His leaf also shall not wither. If your leaf is withering, there's a reason for it. And he'll bring forth fruit when it's time. His leaf will not wither. And whatsoever he does. What, you want me to do the doeth or does? Do whatsoever he doeth, King James. Whatever he does right now. Shall what? No, I want you to get bold about that. Shall what? Prosper. You see, if you were ordained to be prosperous, if you were ordained to prosper, and look, prosperity, wealth is a different thing to everybody in this room. I'm a wealthy man. Now, I don't operate like Donald Trump, but I don't want to. I just really don't. I'm not saying there's no sour grapes here. I do whatever I want to do. I almost felt bad about singing the song. We are often destitute of the things that I'm not. I'm not destitute of life's things. I drive a good car. I live in a nice house. I have a beautiful wife. And they say you can have as pretty a wife as you can afford. I have a beautiful wife. I have a beautiful life. I have beautiful children. I have a lot of them. I got 7 children, 14 grandkids. I thought about changing my name to Abraham. The point is that I really, truly believe that God wants His kids to do well on every level. I do not believe that God created us to be sick. I do not believe that God created us to be broke. I do not believe that God created us to be poor. I believe that as King's kids, we should have what we want. It is God that worketh in you, both to will and to do of His good pleasure. It brings God no pleasure for you to suffer. Listen, if suffering is so valuable, why don't we just go order a big old load of it? If suffering is what is required to be virtuous, we all want to be virtuous, let's just go suffer a whole bunch. Listen, have you suffered? I have. But I don't intend to order anymore. Will I suffer again? I don't know. But if I do, I'm going to have a better attitude about it next time than I did the last time. Because I am not here to acclimate to what's going on. I am here to be a changer. I'm here as a child of God. I'm here as a son of God. I am here as an heir and an offspring of divinity. Are you? Jacob is the hero of our story. And in Genesis chapter 29, You probably all know the story how he got in trouble with his brother Esau because he wanted something that by right was Esau's. And I don't want to deal with that a whole lot. I'm going to assume that you are familiar with that story. He has been on the run, and when he left his home, he left with only one thing. The only thing he had was a blessing. He had a blessing, and I see a little stick over his shoulder with a little sack that his mama made him a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and put a banana in there and said, go to where I came from. So he heads out for Haran, and he goes as far as he can go that day. And when it became night, he was exhausted. He stopped, had his peanut butter and jelly sandwich, ate his banana, and put some rocks together, laid down, and went to sleep. That night, he got something added to his blessing. He had a dream. While he was asleep, you know the dream, don't you? He dreamed about a ladder, and on this ladder were angels going up and down. At the top of the ladder was God. Now, what did God look like? He didn't tell us because no man has seen God at any time. Well, so how did he know God was there? Well, that's a lesson for another time. This is happening. Angels going up, angels coming down. What does that represent? Let me submit to you what I think. Listen, I don't want to be real authoritative today because I'm going to tell you what things look like to me. If it helps you, good. If it don't, take a nap. Angels going up. When you pray, do you know that angels are the bearer of your prayers? When you pray, angels take it right up to God, and the ones coming down are bringing the answer. There is converse. It's good to talk to God. You know what's happened to a lot of Christians' prayers? We talk too much. We do all the talking. Listen, I say, state your case to God, and then shut up. Be still. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and wait until the answer comes to you. So he's asleep. Why does God talk to us when we're asleep? Because you're quiet. That's about the only time God can get a word in edgewise is to put us to sleep. You know, he had put Adam to sleep. You know, Abraham did some sleeping, and now Jacob did some sleeping. In his sleep, he had a dream. When he woke up, the dream affected him so much. Now, tonight I'm going to talk about the law of a dream, and it's powerful. I hope you don't miss it. When he woke up with this dream, he added something to his arsenal. I've got a blessing on my life. I want to tell you something about you. Everybody in this room has a blessing. Now, let me make sure that I'm not overstepping myself. How many of you love God? Then, and how many of you have received Christ? You've received Christ. Then you are an heir to the blessing of Abraham. That's what Jacob had. He was walking with the blessing of Abraham. He had a dream. Now he's got a blessing and a dream. How many of you have a dream? When I talked to you, some of you didn't raise your hand. Don't miss tonight, because I want you to have one after tonight. Okay? But those of you that raised your hand, you've got the same thing that Jacob had, and that's all he had. He didn't have any extra clothes. He didn't have a suitcase. He didn't even have, I lost my luggage, or they lost my luggage on the way here. But he didn't have any luggage to lose. All he had was his knapsack with his peanut butter and jelly sandwich and a banana. Why do you think it was a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and a banana? Because I like it. Because I like peanut butter and jelly and I like banana. That's why he had that in his nap. He had this dream of God. He woke up in the morning and he had church. As a matter of fact, the place was called Luz when he got there. But after his dream, he changed the name. We're going to go through a series of things. It's time to change what we call things. And he started calling Luz the house of God. He said, this is Bethel. God was here and I didn't even really know it. God just kind of snuck up on me. Has God ever interrupted your life? Have you ever had a divine interruption? Jacob had a divine interruption while he was asleep. When he woke up, this thing was so different, I can't even call this today what I called it yesterday. Oh man, that's a whole sermon. I almost wish I was preaching that one. But I'm going to go on with Jacob. He gets up, he gathers what's left of his little lunch, and he heads on out to Haran. As he approaches this city, this little town, he sees flocks gathered around. There's a well, and there's a rock on the mouth of the well. They're just sitting there. Now, I don't totally understand this. There's probably a lot of metaphorical things that we could unravel here, but I'm not going to go there because that's not where I'm going today. But Jacob comes up there, and all of a sudden we realize this guy knows about cattle. He starts talking to him. He says, why aren't y'all watering the flocks? He said, well, we can't do it till everybody gets here. Then we take the stone off, and then everybody drinks. He says, yeah, but you know what? Y'all should already have your flocks out grazing right now. It's hot. What is he? Why is that little information there? Let us know. Jacob is a man that knows how to raise cattle. That's important. See, you need to get in the area of your expertise. So, if you're not a lover of science, why do you want to be a rocket scientist? If you don't love music, why do you want to be a musician? If you don't love art, why do you want to be an artist? If you don't love preaching, why do you want to be one? Y'all get it. I don't need to do that anymore. You got that? Jacob understood cattle. He knew it. He knew how you're supposed to do it. And he's letting them know. So he said, let me ask you guys, do y'all know a guy named Laban? And they said, yeah, we know him. He said, how's he doing? He said, he's doing good. He said, as a matter of fact, look, that's his girl coming right there. Jacob looked up and, oh my God, he got lightheaded. He saw her. And it was love at first sight. Now I understand that because you saw her in the 6th grade? How old are you in the 6th grade? Well, this is going to sound like I'm one-upping you. But I met Jan when she was 11 and in Nacogdoches, Texas. I came home to my mom and dad and I said, I found the girl I'm going to marry. They said, who is it? I said, Jan Dean. They got tickled. They didn't laugh too big, but I could tell they thought it was funny because she was 11 and I was 15. Robbing the cradle. The only thing I'd regret is that she wasn't younger. Because now here I am married to an old woman, you know. But she's a pretty old woman, I'll tell you that. And I wanted her to be with me. I'm missing her. That's why I'm talking about her right now. When I tell her I love her, I say, I love you with all my heart. I love you with all my soul. I love you with my pancreas. I love you with my kidneys. I love you with my liver. I love you. I just love you with everything. Why am I talking like that? Because Jacob saw Rachel and something happened to him. It was like, oh my God, I love this girl. I just love her. I don't know her. I didn't know Jan when she was, but I saw her and I just loved her. And I have never stopped doing that. Jacob saw this girl and he goes, you know how guys do. You want to water your sheep? Well, it's not time. Oh yeah, it's time. He went over and he, by himself, pulled that rock off. A lot of people think Jacob was weak. He wasn't weak. He was bad. He was bad at the bone. They say, a lot of people say he was built a lot like me. And he went over, moved that stone off the well, watered those flocks, and he said, Rachel, I'm your cousin. Your daddy is my mother's brother. I came to find you. I came to find my family. She got all excited. She ran home and told her daddy that his nephew was here. He said, go get him. So they bring him home. They feed him. They take good care of him. And in this atmosphere, Laban says to him, well, you can't just come here and work for nothing. He said, what will your wages be? And he got a silly grin on his face. He said, I'll tell you what I'll do. Are y'all ready for the first principle of the law of outcome? You ready for it? Here it comes. I will serve you. Will you say it with me? I will serve you. I will serve you 7 years if you'll give me that girl to be my wife. Laban said, deal. I mean, I could give her to somebody else, but who's better than you? You're my own flesh and blood. Absolutely, I'll give her to you. 7 years? Listen, I want to tell you something about service. I'm an employer. You can't pay people to work. I've tried it. But when people work or when they serve, you have to pay them. You have to compensate them. Did you know that your power is directly correlated to your level of service? Your authority is directly related to the amount of people that you serve. The more people you serve, the more authority you have. But service in and of itself is a great power in your life. Jesus himself said, I didn't come to lord over you. He said, I came to serve you. He said that with a towel girded around his waist. And he said, and if I'm going to treat you like this, he said, you need to treat each other like this. In other words, I want to show you where power comes from. Power comes from service. Now, why would you even need power if you're a pacifist? You only need power if you are a proactive person. If you are a person that comes into a situation and determines what changes you're going to bring to it. If you're just one of those go along to get along people, You may be very successful at it, but there is a higher order of living in my mind. And Jacob naturally gravitated toward this method of modality. So he says, I'll do it gladly. He was so in love with the girl that the 7 years seemed like a few days to him. So they got the wedding together. It was a big night. And I kind of think the reason why they did it at night and why they had a lot of food, it didn't say it, but we know their tradition. There was wine there. And when they got happy and they couldn't see things like they saw them earlier, and the wedding was finished, they all went to bed, and Jacob went in to receive his wife. And now Leah had pretty eyes, but Rachel was pretty all over. And we woke up the next morning, it wasn't Rachel. It was Leah. Now what? This is funny. He comes out of the tent flap and he says to Laban, "What have you done to me? Why have you beguiled me?" Let's think about that. Let's see. Now, Jacob, are you the guy that went before your blind daddy? How many of you know there is a law of sowing and reaping? The Easterners call it karma, but the Bible calls it sowing and reaping. How many of you know that whatever you sow, you are going to reap that? The words that you say, they're coming back. The deeds that you do, they're coming back. My admonition to you is carry only beautiful seed and say only beautiful things. Because what you say and what you do is coming back. He says, "What have you done to me? I can't believe you did this to me." Once you learn about the law of sowing and reaping, you can start believing what happens to you next. You say, "What did I do to get this?" Get in a meditative and a contemplative state, and God will show you what you did that got you where you are right now. So he says, "Now what am I going to do?" He said, "Well, listen, the reason why I had to do this is because in our culture, we can't give the younger one before the older one. I had to give you the older one because that's our culture." And he said, "But I tell you what, if you'll serve me 7 more years, you can go ahead and have Rachel." He said, "Okay, done." So he served, because serving is the first principle of determining the outcome. This is a principle number 1 of the law of outcome. He served 7 more years. He has Rachel then to wife. Then it says he served yet 7 more years. 21 years of serving. Some of you in this room may be thinking, it's never going to happen for me. I've been doing this for years and years and nothing's going to change. Well, maybe the reason why it's not changing is because you haven't employed the next part of the law. The first part of the law is service. You got that one? Serve. I'm going to serve. I will serve. Say it till it tastes right. I will serve. I will serve. I didn't come to be a Lord. I came to serve. The second thing that happened is recorded in chapter 30. This is what I call intention. Everybody say the word. Intention. You ever had an intention? You ever intended to do something? They say the road to hell is paved with good intentions, but I think that is stated on a misunderstanding, on some ignorance of something. I don't mean to insult anyone here. In chapter 30, Rachel and Leah have gotten into a contest on who can have the most boys. Leah started having boys. She had 4 boys in a row. Rachel got so fed up with it, she comes to Jacob. She says, "Either give me children, I'm going to die." And Jacob looks at her and says, "What?" He said, "You know there's nothing wrong with me. Leah's got boys. The problem's not with me." And she says, "Well, I've got to have children." And she said, "I tell you what I'm going to do. I want to show you how intention is powerful." She says, "You take my handmaid, and if I can't have children with you, I'll have children with you and my handmaid." I don't know how many times in my ministry people have come and said, "Pastor, we want to have children. We just can't have children." And because of a situation in my own life, we lost our first child. And then it seemed like we just weren't going to have another child. I was living in Paris, Texas with Jan, And we had a conversation one day. I said, you know what, let's just enjoy each other. Let's just don't even worry about having a child. I hardly got the words out of my mouth. Boom, the girl got pregnant. He said, wait a minute, I thought it was about intention. Well, we intended to have children. But when you intend something and you get all worried and anxious about it, it means that you have become Lord of the how. You're never Lord of the how. You have the right to state your intention, and then you need to leave it alone. Then you need to let go and let. So she says, well, I'm going to have children one way or the other. So what do we know that her intention is? I'm going to have children. I'm going to have children. So she gives him her handmaid, and she gets pregnant and has a child. Now Rachel claims this child. The handmaid has another child. Rachel claims that child. And then lo and behold. But in the meantime, before this happens, I want to show you something magical. Reuben is the oldest son of Leah, and one day he's out, and I don't know what it was. This is a plant that still exists in the Mediterranean. You ever heard of mandrakes? And a mandrake is a really, I've looked at pictures of it. It's a pretty plant. It's got purple or white flowers with a little yellow berry inside. And when you pull that up, it's kind of like a potato in that the root is shaped like the human form. And the consistency of that root is kind of between a tomato and a potato, or a tomato and a patata. And they have called this mandrake, another word for it is love apple. It's considered to be an aphrodisiac, for one, and two, it's considered to have powers of fertility. So Leah had stopped having boys, and Reuben knew she wanted some more. He found these, and he comes home, and Rachel sees him with those, and she knows what they are immediately. She says, give me some of those mandrakes. And Reuben says, no, this is for my mother. He takes them to his mother, and he says, you won't believe this. Rachel tried to get these mandrakes from me. And Leah comes out of her tent and walked over to Rachel's tent and says, what, you stole my husband and now you want my mandrakes? And she goes out to meet Jacob on his way home. This is all going somewhere. Stay with me. And she tells him, you owe me. You're going to come stay with me tonight because I got mandrakes. And she got excited when she said mandrakes. Some people get excited when they eat oysters. But he got excited because she got mandrakes. So he says, I'll be home with you tonight. And Rachel said, he's going to be with you tonight because you got the mandrakes. He goes home. She gets pregnant. I want to ask you about this. Do mandrakes work? Y'all wondering about those mandrakes? You say, we need to go order some of those mandrakes. I know some people who could use those mandrakes right now. Do they work? If this story is true, they work. They had the mandrakes, and they got pregnant. She's having another child. Now, what is the mandrake thing? It is the second principle of the law of outcome. Whenever you have an intention, you got to do something that is in harmony with your intention. Now, I'm not going to enlarge on that anymore. I'm just going to leave that where it is because I want to get to this other part in chapter 30. If you want to look there, look at verse 37. Now, before we read 37, let me fill in this blank here. Jacob comes to Laban and he says, look, I've served you for a long time, and you know that you've been blessed because of me, because I've done a good job with your cattle. He said, I want you to give me my wives. I want you to give me my children, for whom I have served thee. And let me go, for you know my service, which I have done. You know I have worked for you well, but it's time for me to do something for my family. It's important that men stand up and decide they're going to take care of their families. It's important that men decide to get in front of their house. We talked this a long time ago in the Porter Ministry. It's time for men to stand in the door and not give up the responsibility that God has put on us as men. And he said, you know, I got to take care of my family. I've worked for you. I've done good for you. But what do I have? And so Laban said, well, what do you want me to give you? He said, I don't want you to give me anything. Now, that's a good attitude. I don't want you to give me anything. He said, I'll tell you what, I'll take your culls. I'll take all the culls. Now, according to this, the culls were all the cattle that had spots, that had streaks, and that were grizzled or speckled. The 3 S's. Spotted, speckled, and streaked. Okay? He said, I'll take those. And they said, okay, well, because apparently, the wool was more desirable if it came from a pure white animal. But you see, the reason why that was is because a Jew hadn't gotten involved. Once a Jew gets involved with things, the price changes. Once a Jew gets involved, the whole desire thing changes. Let me talk to you just a moment about desire. A lot of people confuse desire with covetousness. And there's a lot of Christian people who don't dare desire because they think desire is off limits. Let me tell you what's off limits. Covetousness is off limits. What's the difference between covetousness and desire? Covetousness is wanting what belongs to somebody else. Desire is wanting God to create your dream in your life. You say, he that findeth a wife findeth a good thing. Yeah, but it's got to be your wife. It can't be somebody else's wife. That's covetousness. And there are people who really think they want what belongs to somebody else and work and scheme and beguile and get it. When they get it, they wish they didn't have it. Because everything like that comes with baggage. Everything like that comes with a whole lot of hanging-ons and a lot of complexity. But God wants you to, listen, I believe this with every fiber of my being. God wants you to have what you want, what you desire. But don't get involved in covetousness. You see, what you want, God can give it to you perfectly clean, perfectly beautiful, with no baggage whatsoever. The blessings of the Lord maketh rich, and he addeth no sorrow to it. Is that good? How many of you are blessed? Are you blessed? Will you let the blessing just have you? Once we understand the difference between desire and covetousness, it should give us permission to begin to desire. I will serve, and I will serve with intention. It's time for me to take care of my family. You intend to have children? Let's do something. Let's get some mandrakes. You desire to have speckled, streaked, and spotted cattle? Let's do something to make sure we have speckled, spotted, and streaked cattle. So you know what he did? I wanted to do this. I wanted to bring everybody one and we'd get together. I wanted to bring you some poplar rods. I wanted to bring you some branches off of a tree and let you, can you imagine it with me? Take this rod and you peel it. Listen, here's what Jacob did. He took these rods and he peeled them and he separated all these culls from Laban's cattle. And when they came to the watering hole, it was typical that this is where the animals would mate. So in these watering troughs, he stripped these poplar rods and laid them so when the animals were mating, they were looking at the poplar rods. So when they had babies, they were either speckled, streaked, or spotted. And you're saying, does that work? It works. You say, have you ever done it? Yes, I've done it. You want me to tell you about stripping the poplar rod? I went on a vacation because I wanted a black mare. I wanted a black Morgan mare. So I got on the website and I looked and see where the good Morgan farm was, and I studied their horses. And so I found that this farm was in New Mexico. So we planned our road trip through New Mexico. We went there. We went where this farm was supposed to be. It wasn't there. Well, I thought intention was powerful. I'm going to show you that it is. So went on New Mexico, went on through there. I said, I can't believe we didn't find that farm. We went to the Grand Canyon. We had to alter our course a little bit because everything was on fire. It was the year when all the trees were burning. And so we're going to go through Colorado. I got through the top of Colorado, and I went through this little town called Cortez, and I was just driving, minding my own business, and boom, there was that farm. I didn't know they owned 2 properties, and they had moved the farm from New Mexico that was on the website, and now it was in Cortez, Colorado. Nancy was the lady's name, and her name's on the side. I said, that's it. That's the farm right there. We stayed in Cortez that night. I called Nancy. I said, I'm looking for a black mare. She says, I just happen to have one. I went there the next morning, looked at this horse named Precious. I said, I'll take her. I bought that black mare right there, had her shipped to San Antonio. She's at my house right now. And I intended to have a black Morgan mare. But when it didn't pan out the way I thought. See, the thing about being an intentional person doesn't mean that the mystery goes away. It doesn't mean that God's not still in charge. It just means that you're letting God know what you want. God, this is what I want. You think God cares that I have a black mare? I think God cares. He gave me a black mare. Let me tell you something else I wanted. I wanted a buckskin Morgan. So the lady said, she said, let me show you my stud. Her stud was gorgeous, a buckskin stallion. I'm talking just majestic. She said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do for you because I like you. Now, you know why people like me? Because I got Jesus. They can't help it. I sat on the plane with a man. I was not going to bother that man coming up here. I didn't even say anything to him. But he said, good morning. That was a mistake. I found out he was a Southern Baptist, and I preached all the way to Houston from San Antonio. We had church on that airplane. The next leg of my flight, I sit down. I'm not going to do nothing. I'm not going to talk. And a woman who, after the fact, says, I'm a recluse, I'm an introvert, she spoke to me. Mistake. I preached all the way to Indianapolis. Just the goodness of God, how wonderful God is. And she started telling me her life. She said, I had a whole change, a life change in 2014. I found God. And so we just had fun. And I started sharing some things like I'm sharing with you. And I told her, I said, I'm going to Crawfordsville, Indiana, because I want to share some things like what I'm talking to you about. She got so happy. The man followed me out into the, what do you call the deal at the airport, the terminal, in the terminal. He said, hey, thank you. He said, I enjoyed talking to you. I said, me too. If we had proximity, we'd be friends for life, that guy. And he was wealthy. Man, it feels good to sit by people that got money. He was a wealthy man, owns his own company, 60 employees. And I said, man, I'm sitting here with royalty. I didn't know that was going to happen. And he was real nice and kind, real suave. But he loved God. And he was telling me his trip. Intention is a powerful component of determining outcome. So he says, I'm going to get all the three S's. I'm going to get the spotted, streaked, and speckled. So I'm going to put poplar rods in front of their eyes to make sure when they have babies, they're going to be speckled, streaked, and spotted. So I wanted a buckskin. She said, I'm going to go ahead and cover this mare for you. I'm not even going to charge you. What was the charge? The normal charge was $3,500. Somebody just gave me $3,500, and I didn't even ask for it. Have you ever had God do something nice for you without you even asking? But let me tell you what I went in there with. I went in there with the intention of getting a black Morgan mare, but I also had the intention of having a buckskin coat. So she covered this Morgan mare, and we looked in the DNA because, we just do that kind of stuff, and found out there was a chance for us to have a buckskin. But I got two boys that love horses. One's named Jay Kent, and the other's named John Kyle. John Kyle wants a buckskin, and Jay Kent wants a buckskin, and Kent wants a buckskin. The three of us wanted a buckskin. And guess what we got? You think I'm making this up? Because intention is the second component of the law of outcome. If you intend something, it would have been stupid for me to cover that mare with a pinto or with a paint or with a black stallion if I wanted a buckskin. So I gave my intention some support and had my mare covered with a buckskin because I wanted a buckskin. Now this really goes with this story. Hang on. We got 3 more hours and I'll be done. And so, because there's only 3 points, so we're almost done with 2. So here we are. The baby's born. I'll never forget when KC, we call him KC Masterpiece. He's beautiful. Oh my God, he's just handsome. And I went for the Morgan because the Morgan horse is just such a people horse. They love people. They're just this horse just follows me around like a dog. And I just talk to him. I preach to him. I tell him that God loves him and all that kind of stuff. And he just loves it. He loves all my grandkids. I take my grandkids. I got pictures on Facebook of my little baby Cash. He goes out, I want to see KC. And I said, I can guarantee Casey wants to see you too. We go out there. And here I am. My grandkids are enjoying something that is the fruit of my intention. I intended to have a buckskin. I intended to have a black Morgan mare. I got both. What do you intend for your life? Are you just letting it, okay, Sarah, whatever will be, will be? Are you putting out some things that you want to happen in your family, in your life? I mean, why pray if you don't have an intention? Why talk to God if you don't have an intention? But if you intend something, then talk to God about it and then do something about it. What do you want me to do? I want you to start peeling some poplar rods. 66 years ago, a young girl named Billie Jean was told by her doctor that she could not have children. But she wanted children. She intended to have children. So Billie Jean and Jodell went to a little Pentecostal church in Mineral Wells, Texas. And the pastor, Fred Rogers, preached a message and had an altar call. And Billie Jean went forward to Fred J. Rogers and stood in front of him. And she said, the doctor says, I can't have a baby. But she says, I want a baby. And Fred Rogers anointed her with oil and prayed a prayer of faith and said, at this time next year, you're going to have a boy. He's going to be a prophet. My Billie Jean was my mama. She went home, and her and Jodell, my daddy, started peeling poplar rods. They set up a nursery. They bought all blue boy clothes. They started peeling the poplar rods because they had an intent, and their intention was in agreement with the Word of God. And they agreed with my parents. They said, we're not going to tell him. We're not going to tell him about this prophecy because we don't want him to be under any pressure. 17 years, when I was 17 years old, I felt the call of God on my life. I went into my bedroom. I had an older one of these Thompson Chain Bibles. I said, God, if you really want me to preach, show me in your Word. I didn't know the Bible near like I do now, and I said, I had it closed like this. I just opened it, fell open to Psalm 103. Who maketh his angels spirits and his ministers a flame of fire. And I said, now wait a minute, God, that might have just happened. I said, that could have been an accident. So I closed the book and I said, don't be mad at me, but would you show me just one more time? Would you know that when I opened that book the second time, it opened to Hebrews, which is a repeat of that exact same verse. I said, oh my God. You see, I stand here today as the product of intention because I am the fruit of the law of outcome. So I went to my mom had called me. We had supper every day at 5 o'clock. I went into supper. Boy, I was subdued because I got so scared when I opened it to Hebrews. I looked around to see if there was an angel in there. The presence of God can do a number on the flesh. I walked out of my bedroom. I walked in. They knew something was up, and I was just quiet. And I'm not normally quiet. And after a while, I said, well, I got something to tell y'all. And Dad said, okay, what? I said, well, I feel my call to the ministry. He got real quiet. And my dad said, well, do you know what it is to be a minister? I said, well, I've watched you, but no, I don't. He said, do you have any idea the responsibility that goes along with it? I said, no, I don't. All I know is that I'm called, and there's no getting out of it. There was a pause, and Dad said, well, listen, son, we knew this day was coming. We just didn't know when. And that's when I heard the story that I told you. I didn't know my mom wasn't able to have, she had 2 more children after me. See, the law of outcome is predicated on the components of service and intention. And then there's one final thing that will bring this thing home, not sometimes, but every time. It's found in the 31st chapter of our story. And this third and final component is persistence. He heard the words of Laban's sons because they started talking bad about Jacob. They said, man, he's taken everything from our daddy. And he's gotten wealthy on our daddy. And they were mad at him. And so Jacob comes to Laban in verse 6. He says, you know that with all my power I have served your father. And your father hath deceived me. Actually, he's talking to his wives. And he's changed my wages 10 times. Listen, he said, but God didn't let him hurt me. He said, if he said that the speckled was mine, then all the cattle were speckled. If he said the ring straked were mine, then they all bear ring straked. He says, thus God hath taken away the cattle of your father and given them to me. And it came to pass at the time that the cattle conceived that I lifted up mine eyes and saw in a dream. I'm here with a blessing and I'm here with a dream. You're here with a blessing and you're here with a dream. And if you're not with a dream, come tonight because you're going to get the dream tonight. And behold the rams. Now you know the rams is the male. The rams which leaped upon the cattle were ring-straked, speckled, and grizzled. In other words, they were all three. So no matter what he decides, it's going to be in there. I had a dream. See, the dream will be the authentication of your service and of your intention. And God showed me in a dream that no matter what happens, I'm going to get what I've intended. And so I think we should go. And the girl said, well, we agree with you. We think that Daddy's not treating us right. No, I'm not. This is not a deal to get on parents or anything like that. This is just the story. For all the riches that God hath taken from our Father that is ours and our children's, now then, whatsoever God hath said unto thee, do. Then Jacob rose up. I like that. Don't get down. Get up. Then Jacob rose up and set his sons and his wives upon camels. And he carried away all his cattle, all his goods which he had gotten, the cattle of his getting which he had gotten in Padan Aram, for to go see Isaac, his father, in the land of Canaan. Why does this constitute persistence? Because years and years have gone by, and his father told him, I'm going to bless you. I'm going to give you the blessing of God. I'm going to give you the blessing of Abraham. He spoke the blessing of Abraham over Jacob. When Jacob had his dream, God in his dream said, I'm going to bring you back. I don't care how many years go by, I'm going to bring you back. I'm going to tell you, if God told you something when you were a teenager and you feel like you're a senior citizen now and it still hadn't come to pass, don't you dare quit. And don't you dare give up. Because the third and final component of the law of outcome is persistence. Never give up. 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 Don't you ever give up. What God said, it will never come back empty. It will always be full of the essence of its statement in your life. I wanted to come tell you this morning, don't be a wallflower. Don't be someone who just sits and says, now I want to show you something, that you're living by this law, whichever way you decide. You are living by the law of outcome. Everybody in this room is living by the law of outcome. You're living by the law of outcome if all you're doing is sitting and letting life happen to you. You're having that kind of outcome. But if you decide that you're going to be proactive and you're going to go after your dream, you're going to go after what you want in your life, as long as you don't want what belongs to somebody else, I'm telling you, God, by the law of outcome, will absolutely make your desire come true. Do you believe God? Do you believe God? That's it. That's all there is. You want to sing just a little bit? Can we do some a cappella in here? There's a little song that has blessed me so much. It goes like this. I hope that you can hear the chords of this. It says, the breath of God is breathing me. Isn't that good right there? Did you hear that? Yes, the breath of God is breathing me. I'm resting in the breath of God. I know that all is well. Is that good? That's just pure good, isn't it? Would you sing with me? The breath of God is breathing me. I'm resting in the breath of God. I know that all is well. How about this one? The love of God is love in me. I'm resting in the love of God. I know that all is well. You drive down the highway singing that and see if your temperature don't get better. The peace of God is peace in me. I'm resting in the peace of God. I know that all is well. Then it goes, it is well. It is well. Bum, bum, bum. I know that all is well. You know the devil can't get in there when you're saying, it is well. It is well. It is well. Will you say it with me? Powerful. Come on, with intention. It is well. What do you know about it? Dum, dum, dum. I know that all is well. How much is well? How many things work together for good? No, wait a minute. How many things work together for good? I don't care how crazy the next thing looks that shows up in your life. Know this. It's under divine edict. It did not come to hurt you. It came to help you. Everything. Nothing has a choice. It has no choice. It's by law. It's under divine edict. Did you know that fear is not real? Because fear was not created by God. For God hath not given us a spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind. What did Jesus come to do? To change your mind. Paul said, you really want to get changed? You want to really get transformed? He said, how do you do it? By the renewing of your mind. Are y'all good? Tonight, this wasn't really very good. But tonight, the law of dream. The law of a dream. Don't miss the law of a dream. And if you don't have a dream, if you think you don't have one, come tonight. I'm going to help you get that dream, okay? All right. God bless you.